Hello everyone, today I have a quick tutorial on showing you how to install XAMPP, which is a PHP development package if you want to do web development on a local machine, or if you just want to set up and test a WordPress or Drupal site, then this package is a great starting place for doing such things. So you can pick up the XAMPP or XAMPP package on apachefriends.org. You can also get it on SourceForge. Just make sure you go there and you click the download for the version that corresponds with your operating system, whether you're running Mac, Windows, or Linux. Now once it's done downloading, the installation procedure should be about the same as any other program, though I do recommend you make the path of the directory in a easily accessible location that you can remember, because it's a spot you're going to probably be referencing a lot in the future. Now during the installation you may notice a window for Bitnami, and what Bitnami does is they create modules for XAMPP to easily integrate WordPress, Drupal, or other content management systems. During this quick tutorial we're going to be using the Bitnami module for WordPress to quickly get us up and running. Now once you boot up XAMPP, you're going to see this control panel window where you need to enable Apache, the web server, and MySQL, which contains the databases for your web server. Depending on what firewall you're using, you might get a message asking if you want to actually allow the web server or the database to communicate and pass through your firewall. Something to keep in mind about these development stacks is that by default the configuration is set up so that they're locally accessible. You can access it through your own computer, and it's not hard to access it through another computer on the same network as well. But it's not for it being internet accessible. These aren't going to be web servers that by default you can actually see online that you can connect to, just like Google. It's more for getting things ready and set up and working before you actually put them live. Now if it wasn't obvious, the reason you'd want to do this and have this local testing environment is so that the repercussions are minimized. If you crash XAMPP on your local computer, it won't be nearly as bad as if you crash a live web server with websites currently up and running, and then the visitors get pissed off because they can't find your website because it's down. Another good reason if you're into the whole coding thing is so that if there's actually a vulnerability inside your code, your website doesn't get hacked before you find the bug, and then a lot of private information gets leaked to who knows who. Yeah, that would not be so good. So once you've enabled Apache and MySQL, you can go to localhost in the browser, no .com or anything, just localhost. And you should see a screen similar to this, which is the settings window for XAMPP. Now here we're going to want to do a couple of things. One is to go through the security wizard just to be thorough. And from here you can just click on the link that takes you to XAMPP Security. Put in a couple passwords, username and password for the .hta access. And that just adds a little bit extra security. I know of course this is a local installation, but you never know for certain who's just going to walk by your computer and mess with all your settings. So once you've set up those security features, just go back to the index page and you'll see some icons down on the middle of the page for the Bitnami modules I was talking about earlier. You're going to want to go ahead and click on the WordPress module, or if you want to use a different CMS, you can go ahead and try Joomla, you can try Drupal, but WordPress is by far the most popular. So you'll have to go ahead and download the version for the platform you're currently on, whether that's Windows, Linux, or Mac OS. Download it, and when it's done, run the installer for it. Now if you went with the WordPress CMS, and really for most if not all CMSs in general, you're going to have to create an admin account for the WordPress database. Now this would be the master account, the one who has all the permissions to mess with anything on the WordPress site. Go ahead and put in a login. Your real name, you can put whatever you want for that, really. There's no check that WordPress is going to do to actually make sure you're using your real name. For the next field, you may want to use a real email or at least a test email, so that if you ever configure XAMPP or WordPress to send emails, possibly administrative notifications, they can actually get through to your email address so that you can check it to make sure it's actually working. But by no means do you actually have to do that, especially if you're not planning on testing any email features. A couple quick things to note here is that your login username must be all lowercase, and that your password must have no special characters in it, meaning you can use alphanumeric characters and no special symbols. Now next you're going to have to choose a name for your WordPress blog. You can change it in the future as well, so it's not too important what you call it right now. And then as I mentioned earlier, if you do want to play around with the email settings, you can check the box to enable SMTP, that means Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, settings on your WordPress site. You can skip the next message about the Bitnami cloud hosting services unless you want to go ahead and take a look at that. And then after that, it is ready to install. You go ahead and install it. Now you will want to make sure that your web server is still running. If you at any point get a message that says something like ports 80 or 443 may be in use, Skype is actually a common culprit for that. Skype, of course, being the text and voice communication software that Microsoft provides. And you can actually go into the settings menu of that. I think it's under the advanced settings, where you can uncheck using port 80 and 443 for Skype. But if you see another message like this that Apache has shut down unexpectedly, then it's possible you have another instance of Apache actually running right now, and I recommend you go ahead and check the task manager or the Linux or Mac equivalents and make sure that there's actually not another instance running. In this case, WordPress was actually able to run because although Apache wasn't showing up in the XAMPP control panel, I actually had a copy of Apache from the same directory running in the background. And that's also why it didn't want to start inside the control panel. So to make sure everything's running properly, click on the login link inside of the meta section for WordPress, or just add in WP login to the end of the URL and go to that link. It should be something like 127.0.0.1/WordPress/WP admin. You have to use the same login and password that you created during the installation of the Bitnami module. And once you get into the WordPress admin interface, I recommend just going ahead and updating all the plugins that Bitnami provides for you. You may want to use some of them, all of them, or none of them at all, but I like to keep my plugins updated. It's generally a good idea. Unless you have a good reason not to, like the newer versions being buggy or having features taken out that you really relied on. So once we're all done with that, we have a fully functional web development stack to test things out on our local computer. We can go ahead and write code for the web. We can go ahead and develop a WordPress site. You don't necessarily have to have code skills to create a basic WordPress blog, and that's one of the things that's actually really nice about content management systems. But ultimately what you do from here is really up to you. Of course, I'll have more tutorials on this web development kind of stuff or just building simple WordPress sites. If you guys want something specific, go ahead and ask me, and I'll be happy to see if I can cover that for you. I've been Chris Code. I hope you found this tutorial useful, and thank you all very much for watching.